just a lobster.
What's up, guys? It's Jerry and
JC here.
how you guys doing? We thought we'd do something more fun today and talk about collecting and investing in Pokemon a bit more, because obviously they are kind of intertwined, but at the same time some people collect and some people invest and some people do a bit of both. So today we just wanted to talk about our experiences in collecting, for example, how long we've been in the hobby, what we've kind of learned in terms of investing and how we've done it, as well as some mistakes that we made along the way that maybe you guys are doing as well. So yeah, to start us off, we'll talk about how long we've been collecting for. You wanna go first?
Sure, I can go first. So Pokemon. I was into Pokemon since I was a little kid in elementary school. So I've been playing the game, buying cards. My mom has been buying me cards since I was in grade school, right? So up until I would say early high school, which is about 2012, 2013, I was playing the games, buying the cards, and getting really involved. After that, I kind of stopped. And I only recently got back in, so I probably got back into collecting. I haven't played any games, but I got back into collecting this January.
I started collecting Pokemon at around mid 2023, and obviously just like Justin, I've liked Pokemon ever since we were a little kid, So started off with playing the games, and quite honestly speaking, I went out and rebought some of the DS games and Game Boy games, and I've been just kind of playing it on my downtime. But since starting collecting in 2023, obviously the prices have gone pretty crazy, especially in the past year since Surging Sparks, the Pokemon TCG Pocket game, as well as Prismatic. I'm sure you guys are all aware. So yeah, I've been collecting since 2023, and the way I started off collecting was I don't know what got me into collecting, because I didn't know anything about PSA or slabs or anything like that, but I do recall watching a Logan Paul video regarding Pokemon. I think that may be why I started even looking. So what I did next was I joined Facebook groups. I actually got my first slab off of Facebook Marketplace. I remember so vividly. It was a first edition Dragonite, Dark Dragonite from Team Rocket, and I think I paid $380 for that back then. And then ever since then, I was like, okay, this is like pretty cool. Like I get to hold a piece of physical art, at the same time it's very nostalgic as well. So that kind of started a little addiction / trend in me, where I just started looking at cool things to buy. So luckily, the cards that I did purchase back then, they did go up in a lot of value, and it turns out that the cards that I liked, for example, the Gengar from Fire Red Leaf Green, I got that in a PSA 8 back in 2023 for around $480, but now it's like around $2,500. And yeah, so I kind of want to talk about how we started collecting and what were our first few pieces. So what did you start off with?
Coming into the hobby, the reason I got back was because of cards like this. I'm not sure if you can see it, but art rares, illustration rares, right? Cards before, they all looked like holos or EXs, and they were more basic. They were more made for the TCG game, I feel like, but these look like artworks to me. And the older I got, the more I appreciate art. So I bought basically every art rare that I could find when I first got back in January. Realized that was a mistake because some of the cards don't go up. So artwork is what got me back in. And so I got a lot of art rares. However, I realized now that I want to, let's say, sell some of them and buy some of the bigger cards that I like, I'm not able to do it as easily if it's not desired Pokemon for, let's say, Gengar or Eevees or Charizard. So I still like them, but if your approach is to make money, definitely be aware of what type of cards you guys are buying. But however, if you guys are into the game and just starting out, just buy the cards you want, buy the artworks you like. Sometimes your opinion is not wrong. Usually the better artworks, the Pokemon that you like are usually the Pokemon other people like as well. So things can change.
Okay, so the way I started off collecting Pokemon is I just picked up a few slabs that I liked. That was again back in 2023. So after getting these slabs, obviously you start looking for the next shiny thing, you start looking for the next kind of cool card that you want to buy. And eventually that's what I did. I slowly accumulated a nice little collection where I ended up having to buy like a slab case and like the little briefcase and everything. I just consistently collected for probably around a year and a half. And then what I did was I was working a full-time job, so I put some money aside, obviously aside from investing to stock market, saving some, and having some to use for like necessities. I bought some Pokemon cards every single month. And obviously with the prices now, everything's went up, but I do recall when I did start buying, I don't think the purpose of it was an investing approach. I think the purpose of it was just to treat that kind of nostalgic feeling and kind of like fuel that, oh, this is like a very cool art piece, you know what I mean? So I started off liking vintage first, different from Justin here. I didn't really get into modern until I think it was around 2024. And if I'm gonna be honest, that's the way I started collecting. Like now I've moved up a bit more because I've been buying and selling pieces that I was lucky enough to make some money on when I purchased back in 2023. So now I've kind of shifted my focus, and this is where we'll talk about the investing approach of things. I learned about investing in Pokemon probably around 2024 and 2024. And essentially that's when I started. For example, I joined Discord call groups like Pokénotify and all these other groups. And I was able to get some drops, you know, for MSRP, and I learned that sealed is always the best kind of investment to go. So I started accumulating some sealed, and I think that's where I differentiate collecting and investing in my mind, because although the sealed product is cool, you know, like for example, you got the new Phantasmal Pokemon Center ETBs. I really love the Lost Origin ETBs and whatnot, and they do look cool, you know. But they take up a lot of space, and it's not something I look at every single day. It's not something that I'm necessarily trying to collect one of each. So I think my approach for that is more on the investing side, whereas the slabs, it's for myself. It's to feel that kind of, I wasn't able to get that card when I was a kid, and that's been performing pretty well too. If you can see, I posted my collector link here, and it's basically been doing pretty good. So obviously the thing is, there's a lot of speculation, a lot of differing kind of opinions on the state of the market right now. Some people say that we're in a bubble. Some people say there's higher institution funding. A lot of people are getting in, for example, like Kevin O'Leary and all these like celebrities and whatnot. But honestly speaking, like part of me feels like things should plateau and die down a bit, just because some of these prices I personally feel like are not sustainable. But then what do I really know, right? Like for example, let's just say Gold Stars. I remember eyeing a Gold Star Muckup in the PSA 5 probably around a year ago, starting at around $1,000, $1,200, and I didn't pull the trigger. And then as the craze went on, it became $1,500, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. Now it's around $5,000. But I just kind of bit the bullet. I've been saving up for a while. I ended up pulling the trigger on it. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like, at least personally, I'm fortunate enough to be able to save that kind of money, you know, and buy a car like that. But how practical and how sustainable is this in the future, where a PSA 5 of a Gold Star Muckup is going to be $6,000, $7,000, $8,000? You know what I mean? What do you think?
Well, you know, Jerry's definitely a lot more knowledgeable than me in this market, but Pokemon cards have been doing strong, like year over year, better and better. And I'm someone who got older and maybe had different interests and lost a little bit of my childhood interests by maturing and things like that. But even, you know, now I want to come back to it. So I think part of the community feels like the hobby's hype right now is from 90s kids being 30-year-olds almost now, and you know, buying their nostalgic back and driving up the market. But the Gen X's and Gen Z's are going to be 30, 40-year-olds one day and they're gonna go back to their nostalgia. So I think it's gonna do well.
All right, and I want to talk about some of the kind of collecting. Well, not so much collecting mistake because there's no right or wrong way to collect, right? So that's where there's a fine line between like collecting and investing. Because if I talk about collecting mistake, I don't think I've made any. But if we talk about investing mistake, here's some of the things that I definitely messed up on in the beginning. So in the beginning, I obviously collected the cards I really want, and it just happened to be high-end vintage. So now knowing that like that wasn't an investing mistake or collecting mistake, because I just happen to like the more expensive cards, to be honest, because those are the chase cards when I was a kid that were not obtainable. So I just went out now with my adult money and got those cards. So I don't regret any of those, and it did play out to be a fairly good collecting and investing strategy. But there was a point in time where I started getting these more expensive cards, and at the same time I had some money left, and that wasn't enough to buy another expensive card. So what I did was I just looked around and see on Facebook, Pokemon groups and whatnot, and I see these kind of lower end cards. So around like $10, $15, $5. I ended up picking a bunch of those up, right? I ended up picking a bunch of those up, here being like a few of them, you know? So I did that for a while, and then after some time, I fell in love with them. I decided that like the whole reason why I started collecting is because I want these more grail status cards. So I ended up trying to sell them, and I noticed that my mistake was getting a bunch of these cards that I didn't really plan on keeping. And to be very honest with you, my experience from selling the more expensive cards, for example, like $500 and up, compared to $5 cards, $8 cards, the $8 cards are actually more difficult for me personally to move, especially if they're not in near mint/mint condition. So yeah, it's been taking me a while to kind of recoup the funds on the lower end cards. Obviously some of them have went up dramatically, like the new EX promo, like the Drowsy at one point had a spike. People call it like a pump and dump, right? But at the same time, just the normal ones that haven't really got too much attention, they've been kind of difficult to sell, and I obviously regret buying them because I just kind of impulsively bought them in the moment just because I wanted to catch them all, you know? But I mean, this guy probably has a lot to say regarding that, because
yeah, I'm way worse than Jay when it comes to that. And I don't like, again, I like the hobby, I like the cards, and I do work as well, and I have a job, and this
which
is
is
that,
good, yeah.
and the best way. So again, adult money, when you have adult money and you're trying to play your hobby again, to be honest, I don't feel it's expensive to pay $10 for a cardboard that I like. However, paying $10 for a cardboard that should be $2 might be a little bit too much. So that's a totally different story, but I didn't really bargain much when I was buying them at market or even over market slightly at times, right?
More so over market.
Right, yeah. And I never thought about trying to make the money back. But, you know, at the time I was getting in, I did hear that Pokemon would do well long term. So in the back of my head, I thought these cards can't be less than what I bought them for, can they? Well, that depends. Depends how soon you're trying to get rid of them. So same thing that I did was I came in, I bought everything I like. I had say hundreds to maybe 1,000 cards. I had them in the big box, right? And the more that I got, I started to realize now it's too much. So when I first started buying them and getting into the hobby, everything exciting. Even the regular holo is exciting. I want everything. The more and more you have, the less exciting those ones become, and you start picking out just the special illustration rares, and you start only focusing on certain ones, and the rest you kind of just keep them in a box. So when I started to move those, I started to realize it's not that easy to move, and I started to realize not everyone's like me. I noticed when I went to a card show with Jerry that a lot of people collect certain Pokemon. You know, they collect evolutions, or they collect Gengar, or even anything, but they collect certain Pokemon. I collected everything, which is not wrong. I mean, in a collecting standpoint, I think Jerry and I always say you're not wrong for collecting what you like, but if you're investing and your purpose is to invest, then maybe skipping this step that we both got into as a step one, you can avoid that. Kind of just know which cards are popping. I would say which characters and Pokemons are more popular, what type of card. Again, Jerry's very smart actually, because vintage is a very good market.
I don't think it's because I'm more smart per se. Like it just depends like what type of, like I feel like modern as an aggregate moves faster, but high-end vintage also moves at a decent pace. Like, for example, Gold Stars, Crystals, Shinings, EX era, those are some of my favorites, right?
Okay, yeah.
But then like for example, Justin bought like a bunch, like probably over 2,000 cards, 1,000 cards.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and the hard thing to, sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So the hard thing to kind of the liquidity factor of it is that when you do try to sell it, you have to sell off the cards one by one, whether it's $3 or $5 or $10. Or if you get lazy of that, or you don't kind of have the social kind of network to sell each one of those off individually, people like vendors or buyers like myself will reach out to you, and usually you'd get an offer like max 75% of market.
Correct, and that I did not know as well. So before you start doing these things, you always think people. It comes with your style too, because I was a buyer that just bought at market, so I expected more people to just buy at market. Like that's not always the case. So
the tough part about these small cards is, for example, the market is $4 or $7, and then you try to sell it for $7. Chances are someone's gonna bargain you for $5.
Right.
So you sell it for $5, you're already losing, like, I don't know the math, but you're already losing like 20 to 30% there, no?
Right.
So that's like,
That comes to another point, is when I was buying these, I purposely, at the time when I first started, didn't buy those bigger cards because I didn't understand it as much. So I was scared to lose money. I was scared a $1,000 card would become 500 in one day. However, now that I've been in the hobby for almost a year now, I realize that's not the case. Markets don't move like that, unless something crazy happens. So I just bought smaller cards. I thought they were safer. However, I would say definitely harder to move.
So the thing about that is, like, for example, Justin said he was too scared to buy expensive cards back then because he didn't know the kind of future of it. For me, like, so that's where the investing didn't come in the kind of beginning, because I bought those expensive cards not because I was taking a shot at them of going up, but to me it's like the perceived value of that card was worth that much, and I felt like I would pay that money to get it. So for example, I got it was a PSA 4 Crystal Charizard from Skyridge, and I remember saving up probably like 1 or 2 months for that, and that costed me $2,400. And I'm pretty sure that card is worth, I'm not too sure, probably like 4K now, something like that. And then same with the Gold Star Rayquaza. I bought that card for $3,000, $2,800, $3,000, probably a year ago now. And it's not because I had crystal ball or thought it was gonna go up per se, but just because that's like the holy grail. And I remember seeing that card before the EX Deoxys, and I didn't open a single pack of that. And yeah, that's why I decided to use the adult money to kind of just buy it, because my perceived value was that price. But then now, I think the recent last sold was 11K on eBay, and it's like, did I purposely make that investment play? No, I didn't, but I think that's where our time in the market kind of helped us to realize a few things, and that's basically high-end vintage, high-end modern, or just any normal modern cards are cool too, So those are I wouldn't say the best investment plays, but you can't go too wrong with that. I feel like it's at least liquid. You're at least able to get your money back in the future, but obviously investing wise, you should collect sealed, right? So that's only something I learned more so recently. Pokemon Center ETBs, booster boxes, right? Special collection boxes. I think that's kind of what we've been told by everyone around us and the media to collect, right?
Exactly. And I think for those who, let's say, don't have that much money to go out and buy all these products right now, really just buy the cards you like, and some of the newer heavy hitters are also good. For example, back in 2004, or was that when the Crystal Charizard came out?
Yes.
Early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
Even up to 2010, that card was a few $150, right? And only recently did it blow up to a few thousand. So any card that you guys like and you guys want to hold on to and you think it's a grail in the future, it could be. It's just that the card is so new and the set is so new, it hasn't got to that point yet. So that gets back to the point about vintage and modern, is that modern is something that just came out. It will not do as well as something that's out of print for decades already, right? But those cards also took time to get up there. So if you guys are collectors, collect what you like, but there's definitely a smart way of collecting, because when I came in, now my knowledge of back then was there was just EXs, level Xs, holos, gold stars, and I remember gold stars and full arts were kind of really hard to pull. Back then in the early Diamond and Pearl era, early black and white era cards, 2012 and earlier, right? Nowadays, when I got into collecting, I didn't realize the art rares were so common. I thought they were just as rare when I first started. So I bought the art rares thinking their values are kind of like full arts, like secret rares. But they were not, and my knowledge is wrong. But for collecting, again, have fun, do what you like. Sometimes your judgment is not wrong.
Yeah, and I feel like for the Pokemon hobby as a whole, if you're doing it just to invest, I mean, props to you. I think there's no disrespect there.
No,
right?
No.
If you know nothing about Pokemon, but you're just in it to invest, sure, that's totally fine. But what I notice is it's usually collectors / investors that kind of are in it longer, and they're able to kind of get the most out of the hobby. Because if I'm gonna be honest, you kind of do need to do some research.
You do. If you're brand new, let's say you're a big stocks guy, a big investor, but you have no idea about the Pokemon hobby, you're not going to be able to know which characters are performing the best, what card type, how people's interest shifts, all this type of stuff. It's stuff that might not even interest you. It's like me today telling you, hey, go invest in Tesla, go invest in this, but if you don't understand it, it's just me telling you to do it. And one day, if it goes up, if it goes down, you kind of have no control and know when to pull the trigger. But if you understand something or like something, that's when it gets a little bit easier. But I believe a lot of people watching this video will probably be Pokemon collectors.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you like this type of content, and we'll see you guys for the next one.
See ya. Thank you. Peace.